The world above ground is changing at a dizzying pace. Cities expand, forests vanish, rivers shift their courses. But beneath the earth, time flows differently. In caves, eternal silence and constancy reign. The temperature remains stable for years. The humid air preserves organic matter, and the darkness reliably shields everything from the destructive power of light. It is here, in these natural vaults, that humanity finds the most precious keys to its past. Caves are not merely shelters, they are witnesses to the first steps of reason, the first rituals, the first manifestations of what makes us human. For thousands of years, speleologists have risked their lives crawling through narrow passages, crossing abysses and rubble, to illuminate with a flashlight beam what had been hidden from the eyes of millions of generations. Some discoveries were so unexpected that they forced scientists to rewrite history textbooks. In this story, we will journey through 5 of the most mysterious cave discoveries that continue to stir the imagination and spark heated debates in the scientific world. The first enigma awaits us in France, in Bruniquel Cave. It was February 1990. A group of speleologists, including 15-year-old Bruno Kowaleski, was exploring the little-known passages of Bruniquel Cave in southwestern France. As they pushed deeper and deeper, they traveled more than 300 meters from the entrance. Suddenly, in the powerful beams of their flashlights, a large underground chamber opened before them. On the floor lay hundreds of carefully broken stalagmites, arranged into 2 nearly perfect circular structures. The large ring measured 6.7 meters in diameter, the smaller one about 2 meters. Some fragments were stacked in several layers, while others stood vertically like supports. Nearby rose 4 piles of debris. The total weight of these constructions exceeded 2 tons. Traces of ancient fires were visible everywhere, charred animal bones, including those of a large cave bear. François Rousseau, the archaeologist immediately called to the site, understood at once this was not the work of nature or animals. Someone had deliberately broken stalagmites, transported them a significant distance inside the cave, and built complex structures in complete darkness. Initial radiocarbon dating of the burned bear bone indicated an age of about 47,600 years. But the real sensation came much later. In 2013, a team led by Jacques Joubert returned to the cave with modern equipment. Using high-precision uranium-thorium dating on the calcite that had grown over the broken stalagmites, the scientists obtained a stunning result. The structures were created approximately 176,500 years ago, with an error of just a couple of thousand years. At that time, modern humans, Homo sapiens, did not yet exist in Europe. The only hominins capable of such work were Neanderthals. This discovery overturned our understanding of Neanderthals. For a long time, they had been considered primitive, barely capable of complex planning or symbolic thinking. Yet here, at a depth of 336 meters, in absolute darkness, they demonstrated a high level of organization. They carefully selected and broke stalagmites of roughly equal length, transported heavy fragments, and erected geometrically precise structures. They also used fire. All of this required not only physical effort, but also abstract thinking, the ability to plan ahead, and possibly the performance of some kind of ritual. Scientists still debate the purpose of these circles. Was it a sanctuary? A place for initiation rites? A primitive calendar or astronomical marker? Or simply a shelter built with extraordinary care? The traces of fire and charred bones suggest the space was used repeatedly and over a long period. The discovery at Bruniquel became a powerful argument that Neanderthals possessed a complex culture comparable to that of early Homo sapiens. They were not the evolutionary dead end once believed. They were our brothers in reason, capable of mastering even the most inaccessible corners of the planet. The second enigma lies at the other end of Eurasia, in Siberia's Denisova Cave. The Altai Mountains, southern Siberia, Denisova Cave, named after the hermit Dionysius who lived here in the 18th century, has long attracted archaeologists. Excavations have been underway since the 1980s, and every new layer brings surprising finds. But the real sensation occurred in 2008. In the eastern gallery of the cave, in a layer dating to about 40 to 50,000 years ago, scientists found a tiny fragment of a child's finger bone. This small piece of bone looked completely ordinary, yet it would turn all of paleoanthropology upside down. When DNA was extracted from it in the Max Planck Institute laboratory in Leipzig, under the direction of Svante Pääbo, the result was sensational. The genetic code matched neither modern humans nor Neanderthals. It belonged to an entirely new species of ancient humans, the Denisovans, or Denisovan people. Later, other fragments were found in the same cave, teeth and a jawbone. Next to the finger bone, an astonishing artifact was discovered, a fragment of a green chlorite bracelet. This bracelet, dated to about 40 to 45,000 years old, was made with remarkable skill. It was meticulously polished and had a drilled hole. The technology required to create it involved abrasive tools and a drill, skills previously attributed only to much later cultures. The Denisovans turned out to be genetically close to Neanderthals, but represented a separate branch. Their traces have been found in the genomes of modern inhabitants of Oceania, Australia, some Asian peoples, and even Tibet, the gene that helps with high-altitude adaptation. Moreover, evidence of interbreeding was found in Denisova Cave, a girl born to a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father. Who were these mysterious Denisovans? Where did they come from to Siberia? How far did they spread across Asia? Why did they disappear? The cave continues to guard its secrets, and every new excavation season may bring new answers. The third enigma takes us to the other side of the world, to the small Indonesian island of Flores in Liang Bua Cave. September 2003, an Australian-Indonesian expedition led by Mike Morwood and Thomas Sutikna was making its way through the narrow corridors of Liang Bua Cave in the western part of the island. The cave had long been known. Local residents used it as a shelter, and archaeologists had already found stone tools there. But no one expected what was discovered several meters deep in the sediment layers. First came a tiny lower jaw, then fragments of a skull, arm, and leg bones. When the scientists assembled the skeleton, they froze in amazement. Before them lay the remains of an adult human only about 106 centimeters tall, the size of a modern 3-year-old child. The brain volume was roughly 380 to 420 cubic centimeters, smaller than that of a chimpanzee. However, the teeth and skull structure clearly indicated membership in the genus Homo. The age of the find was initially about 18,000 years. Later datings refined the range to between 100,000 and 50,000 years ago. Scientists named the new species Homo floresiensis, Flores man. The press immediately nicknamed it the Hobbit after Tolkien's characters. The small stature, proportionally long arms, and primitive facial features were combined with surprisingly sophisticated stone tools, sharp scrapers, points, and even tools for hunting the dwarf elephants, stegodons, that also lived on the island. How could such a creature have appeared? The most convincing hypothesis is island dwarfism. The ancestors of the hobbits were likely larger Homo erectus, who reached Flores about 1 million years ago, possibly during a strong storm or by primitive seafaring. In conditions of limited resources and the absence of large predators, their bodies gradually shrank and their brains adapted to the new conditions. New finds at Mata Meng, dated to about 700,000 years ago, confirmed that the dwarfism process began very early, and these hominins were already extremely small at that time. But the real mystery is why they disappeared around 50,000 years ago. For a long time, the main theory was the arrival of modern humans, Homo sapiens, who may have competed with or even exterminated the hobbits. However, recent studies published in 2025 in the journal Communications Earth and Environment offer a different picture. Analysis of sediments and isotopes showed a sharp aridification, drying, of the climate around 61,000 years ago. Summer rains dramatically decreased, and the island's ecosystem suffered a crisis. Fresh water became scarce, and the population of stegodons, the main source of meat, shrank sharply. The hobbits faced long-term ecological stress. It is likely that climate change, combined with other factors, including the arrival of modern humans, led to their extinction. Liang Bua Cave still holds many secrets. Every new excavation season may reveal how these tiny people lived, hunted, and possibly even created simple symbols. The hobbits remind us that human evolution did not follow a straight line, but many parallel paths, some of which were surprisingly fragile. The fourth discovery brings us back to Europe, but to a time closer to our own, the end of the last ice age. Gough's Cave in Cheddar Gorge, southwestern England. This is one of Britain's most famous caves, with long corridors, stalactites, and underground rivers. In the 1980s and 1990s, large-scale excavations were carried out here. In a layer dated to about 14,700 years ago, archaeologists found the remains of roughly 15 people, men, women, and children. But what had been done to these bones shocked even the most experienced paleoanthropologists. The skulls had been carefully processed. The skin was removed, the lower jaw detached, the brain cleaned out, and the edges polished and shaped to create convenient cups. Skull cups. Some skulls still bore traces of precise cuts from stone tools. Nearby lay long bones with characteristic human tooth marks and signs of butchery. Even gnawed finger phalanges were found. One radius, forearm bone, carried the oldest geometric pattern in Britain. Parallel lines incised with a flint tool. Research by Sylvia Bello of the Natural History Museum in London and her colleagues in 2015 to 2025 confirmed. This was ritual cannibalism. It was not mere starvation in the harsh times following the retreat of the ice sheet, but a conscious ritual. People ate their fellow humans, or defeated enemies, and turned their skulls into ritual vessels, possibly for drinking or storing something important. The tooth marks on the bones were clearly human, and the skull processing was far too careful for simple disposal. Why? Scientists offer several explanations. It may have been an act of ancestor veneration. By consuming the flesh, a person absorbed the strength of the deceased. Or a way to appease spirits during a period of unstable climate. Or perhaps a demonstration of dominance over defeated groups. At that time, Gough's Cave was a place where different groups of Cro-Magnons, early modern humans, gathered. Meetings, exchanges, conflicts, and rituals that strengthened social bonds may have taken place here. The find at Gough's Cave is one of the clearest examples that the boundaries of human behavior in antiquity were far wider than we usually imagine. Cannibalism existed not only as a desperate survival measure, but as part of a complex symbolic culture. The fifth enigma lies in the tropical mountains of the Philippines. The highlands of Benguet Province on the island of Luzon. Here, in hard-to-reach rock shelters and caves around the village of Cabayan, the unique fire mummies of the Igorot people, specifically the Ibaloi group, have been known since the 16th century. These mummies are unlike Egyptian or Peruvian ones. They were mummified in a special way. The body was smoked over a sacred fire made from specific herbs and resins, then dried in a seated embryonic position, sometimes tattooed or wrapped in cloth. The most famous are the Cabayan mummies, including the legendary Brown or Apung Brown, believed to be an ancient chief or shaman. The age of the mummies ranges from several hundred to 2,000 years. The skin, hair, and even internal organs in some cases are remarkably well preserved. The mummification process was complex and lengthy. The body was first dehydrated, then smoked for several months, and finally buried in caves high in the mountains, accessible only to the initiated. There are several mysteries here. First, how did the ancient Igorot achieve such perfect preservation without modern chemicals? The smoking method, fire mummies, required precise knowledge of herbs, temperature, and timing. Second, why were they buried specifically in caves? According to legends, the souls of the ancestors were meant to remain close to the living, but in inaccessible places, so they could protect the community without disturbing the living. In the 20th century, some mummies were stolen or damaged, provoking the anger of local residents. Today, active work is underway to preserve them. In 2024 to 2025, Projects were carried out to monitor the microclimate in the caves, in cooperation with Ibaloi elders and international experts. The mummies are considered not merely archaeological objects, but living ancestors who continue to live in the consciousness of the people. The Kabayan caves have not all been explored yet. Locals speak of hidden galleries that may contain even older bodies. These fire mummies are a bridge between past and present. They remind us that for many ancient cultures, death was not an end, but a transition to another form of existence. In 2025, an international team working together with Ibaloi elders completed a 10-month microclimate monitoring project in 7 rock shelters. The data showed stable temperatures, but extremely high and unstable humidity, the main factor accelerating the destruction of the mummies. The Preventive Conservation Project became an example of respectful cooperation between science and indigenous knowledge. The ancestors continue to speak through their bodies, while the living learn to protect them. 5 caves. 5 moments when darkness revealed secrets that changed our understanding of ourselves. What unites these discoveries? All of them were made in places where humans, or their predecessors, first stepped beyond mere survival. In Bruniquel, 176,500 years ago, Neanderthals descended 336 meters into absolute darkness to build complex circular structures from heavy stalagmites. New geological studies in 2026 confirmed that the cave was accessible precisely during that cold period, and the Neanderthals deliberately broke the stalagmites rather than collecting already fallen fragments. This speaks to a high degree of planning and possibly symbolic thinking long before the appearance of modern humans in Europe. In Denisova Cave, time seems to compress. Here, in one place, different branches of humanity met. In 2025 to 2026, geneticists sequenced a high-quality genome of a 200,000-year-old Denisovan from a molar, only the second such high-quality genome after the famous Denisova finger. This ancient person lived in a small, isolated group, yet his descendants left traces in the genomes of modern peoples from Tibet to Oceania. Nearby were the remains of the hybrid Deni, a girl born to a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father. The cave became a true meeting place where different lines of ancient humans not only coexisted, but interbred. On Flores, the hobbits of Liangbua demonstrated how evolution can take unexpected paths. A new 2025 study, published in Communications Earth and Environment, showed that around 61,000 years ago, the island experienced sharp aridification. Summer rains almost disappeared, and the ecosystem suffered a crisis. The population of dwarf stegodons shrank dramatically, and with it, the resources available to the small people. Homo floresiensis occupied the cave for nearly 140,000 years, but climatic stress was likely the decisive factor in their disappearance around 50,000 years ago. Not necessarily war with modern humans, but a long, merciless ecological blow. In Gough's Cave, around 14,700 years ago, early modern Europeans turned skulls into ritual cups. This was not primitive starvation. The processing was too careful, almost ceremonial. Similar practices have been found at other Magdalenian sites, but here they appeared especially clearly. Cannibalism as part of a complex symbolic culture is a reminder that the boundaries of what is human in antiquity were broader and darker than we like to think. And finally, in the mountains of Kabayan, the fire mummies of the Igorot show how culture can preserve the bodies of ancestors for centuries, turning death into a constant presence. Today, these mummies are not just archaeological objects, but living ancestors protected by their descendants in cooperation with scientists. Caves continue to change history. Every new excavation season, every DNA sample, every isotope or microclimate analysis brings surprises. We thought Neanderthals were primitive. Bruniquel proved the opposite. We believed all ancient humans descended along a single straight line. Denisova Cave revealed parallel branches and their mixing. We assumed the small hobbits died out due to competition, The 2025 climate data added a dramatic ecological context. We believed cannibalism was only desperation. Goff speaks of rituals. We thought mummification was the privilege of pharaohs. The Philippine mountains proved it could be the art of entire peoples. Underground, time does not simply stop, it preserves. In constant darkness and stable temperature, bones, tools, traces of fire, and even DNA, which we have only recently learned to read, are preserved. But caves store not only facts, they store questions. Who are we if our ancestors already 176,000 years ago descended into darkness to build circles from stone? How much more complex was their inner life than we can imagine? What did humanity lose when the Denisovans and hobbits disappeared? And how far are we willing to go today to understand our past? Speleologists and archaeologists continue to take risks. New passages open. Old caves are re-examined with 3D scanning, LiDAR, and genetic methods. Somewhere in Siberia, France, Indonesia, or the Philippine mountains may lie the next discovery that will once again force us to rewrite the textbooks. Because caves are not just holes in the ground. They are mirrors in which humanity looks at itself across thousands of generations. And in their deep silence, the echo of the first questions we ever asked ourselves still resounds. Who are we? Where did we come from? And where are we going?